You're embarrassing yourself. Daddy never promised you anything. Stop making up stories for attention. The room went quiet. Aunts, uncles, cousins, some nodded. Some just looked away. And across the room, I watched the estate lawyer shift in his chair and glance down at his briefcase like he was holding something too heavy to ignore. And that's when I knew. If I didn't speak up now, I was going to lose everything my grandfather quietly left for me. My name is Delia Fontenot. I'm 33 years old, and I've been the quiet one in my family my whole life. I work as a licensed practical nurse, long shifts, compression socks, a modest apartment with thin walls, and a second-hand couch I've had since I was 26. There's no financial cushion, no safety net. Just me, my scrubs, and whatever I managed to save between paychecks. But I had Pop Lou. That's what I called my grandfather, Louis Fontenot Sr. And he was the only person in my entire family who truly saw me. Not the version of me they wanted to see. Not the quiet background daughter they could overlook at holidays. He saw me. We had Sunday phone calls that lasted an hour sometimes. Just the two of us, talking about everything. His garden, my patients, what we both wanted the future to look like. He'd walk me through his tomato beds in the summer and say things like, "This one needs more room to grow." And I always felt like he was talking about me too. My sister Paige was the one they celebrated. Corporate job, big wedding, every holiday toast ending with her name. She was the one who got the long hugs at the door and the first seat at the table. I was the one who helped clean up after, but Pop Lou pulled me aside more than once. He was deliberate about it. He'd lower his voice just enough and say he had made arrangements, that he had taken care of things, that I shouldn't worry. I wasn't polished, I wasn't loud. But Pop Lou once told me, "Delia, quiet people carry the deepest truths." I held on to that. I had no idea how much I'd need it. If you've made it this far, you already understand something about Delia, a woman who worked hard, stayed quiet, and loved deeply, only to be dismissed by the people closest to her. If you've ever been called a liar by someone who is supposed to love you, this one's for you. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this. And tell me, have you ever been the one nobody believed? Drop it in the comments. Click like. Let's get into it. Pop Lou passed away on a Tuesday morning 2 weeks before that family gathering. It was a short illness, faster than any of us expected. I was at his bedside for most of it. I held his hand through the hard nights because that's what I do. I'm a nurse. I know how to stay in a room when everyone else wants to leave. Paige arrived near the end. She walked in with a rolling suitcase and red eyes and stood at the foot of the bed like she was arriving for a performance she'd almost missed. I said nothing about that. The week after his passing, during a small family dinner at my mother's house, I brought it up calmly. I told them Pop Lou had spoken to me privately, that he had mentioned a specific arrangement in his will, that he had even referenced a locked personal safe in his study. Paige put her fork down. He told you? Why would he tell you anything special? You weren't even around half the time. That was a lie. She knew it. I knew it. I let it sit in the air between us. My mother, June, didn't even pause to consider it. Delia, honey, don't start drama during grief. That's not what this family needs right now. I contacted the estate lawyer myself after that. Mr. Thibodeau confirmed there was indeed a sealed document and a reference safe, but said the contents could only be revealed at the formal reading. That was the process. That was the rule. Paige didn't wait for the formal reading to start working on people. Within days, she was making calls. Aunts, cousins, family friends. She framed it carefully, not as a lie exactly, just a shape she was building. Delia is unstable. Delia is grieving wrong. Delia is manufacturing a story to grab money during a vulnerable time. Then came the reception, held at the family home. 30-something people gathered in the rooms where Pop Lou used to sit. Paige stood near the fireplace and spoke loud enough for the whole room to hear. "We just want everyone to know that whatever Delia says about Daddy's estate, none of it's been verified. We don't want anyone getting confused." Gasps. Then silence. Then the worst part. Sympathetic looks drifting toward Paige, not toward me. I stood there holding a plate of food in my grandfather's house, surrounded by people he loved, and I felt the floor open under me. I didn't say a word out loud, but I thought she just made her first real mistake. Because Pop Lou did tell me something. And he didn't just tell me. He made sure I could prove it. The betrayals didn't stop there. They stacked. The first one landed about a week later. Paige, working alongside my mother, arranged a private pre-reading meeting with Mr. Thibodeau. Preliminary paperwork, she called it. I found out from a cousin who texted me, assuming I already knew. I didn't. When I confronted Paige, she shrugged. It was just preliminary paperwork. Nothing that concerns the whole family. But something had shifted in her after that meeting. She seemed looser, relaxed, almost smug in a way she wasn't bothering to hide. The second betrayal came at another family gathering, this one framed as a chance to discuss arrangements. Paige produced a handwritten note. She said it was from Pop Lou. She said it expressed his wish for her to manage all estate decisions. The note was vague. No date, no witness signature. Suspiciously convenient in every way that mattered. But Paige was crying while she read it aloud, and in that family, tears have always carried more weight than facts. An aunt turned to me gently. Maybe you just misunderstood what Daddy told you, sweetheart. Grief does that. I was spoken over, talked around, slowly moved to the outside edge of every conversation, like furniture being rearranged before a showing. The third betrayal was personal. Someone, and I know who, leaked to extended family that I had borrowed money from Pop Lou years ago. It was true, it was also repaid, and it was between him and me. But the way it spread, stripped of all context, it painted me as someone financially desperate, someone with motives, someone not to be trusted. A cousin I had known my whole life stopped returning my calls. I felt the isolation like a slow pressure in my chest, the kind that builds so gradually you almost don't notice it until you can't breathe. But I didn't collapse. Something went quiet inside me. Not defeated quiet, but decided quiet. They wanted me to disappear. I chose to stay visible. I started documenting everything. Dates, statements, who said what and when and in front of whom. Nursing had trained me to keep records, and I applied every bit of that discipline here. I pulled out every card Pop Lou had ever sent me, every letter, every note tucked into small envelopes with my name written in his careful handwriting. And inside, a birthday card from 3 years ago, folded small and pressed flat against the inside back cover. I found it. What they didn't know was this. Pop Lou was not a man who left things to chance. He was a man who prepared. The folded paper was a handwritten letter, not a legal document. Something more personal than that. In his own hand, in the ink I recognized from 100 grocery lists and garden notes, he had written about the safe, its location in the study, its combination, and his specific intentions for me. He didn't name exact figures, but he named me. He used the phrase, "for you alone." He wrote, "Don't let them take what's yours." I had held onto that letter quietly. I told no one, not even the cousin I trusted most, because I had understood early that trust in this family had limits. I couldn't always see until I'd already crossed them. I also remembered a Sunday phone call, 3 months before he died. He had said, voice steady and low, "I talked to Thibodeau. Everything's written down. Don't let the noise confuse you." I had written the date of that call in my journal. Force of habit from years of nursing where documentation means everything and a missing note can change everything. Paige had spent 2 weeks building a case against me, but I had something she never thought to look for. The truth, in Pop Lou's own handwriting, sitting quietly in a shoebox under my bed. Mr. Thibodeau reached out to me first. He was a man in his late 60s, the kind of lawyer who wore the same style of suit for 30 years because he had stopped needing to impress anyone. He had handled Pop Lou's affairs for over 2 decades. He wasn't warm exactly, but he was meticulous and fair. And in that moment, those qualities meant more to me than warmth ever could. His call was brief and professional. "Miss Fontenot, I want to make sure you are present and prepared for the formal reading. You have standing in this matter." He didn't say more than that. He didn't need to. The fact that he called me at all told me exactly what I needed to know. I met with him privately before the formal reading and I brought the letter. He read it without expression, without comment. Then he folded it carefully, slid it into a clear sleeve, and placed it inside his briefcase. That was enough. Meanwhile, the family's confidence had started to sound like certainty. Paige was already talking about renovating the family property. She referenced what's coming to her the way people talk about a deposit they're waiting to clear. Relatives nodded along because she had spent weeks making sure they would. June, my mother, pulled away from me in the small ways that hurt the most. Different seating at dinner. Group chats where decisions were made before I could respond. The slow, quiet removal of my presence from the family picture. Then Paige found out I had met with Thibodeau privately. She called me within the hour, voice sharp as cut glass. You went behind our backs. What are you trying to pull? I kept my voice level. I'm just making sure I'm present at the reading. Like you were at your private meeting. She hung up. The formal reading was scheduled for a Thursday morning, and for the first time in all of this, I walked toward it without apology, without rehearsing my explanations, and without fear. Thibodoc's office smelled like old paper and wood polish, the kind of room that had held 100 difficult conversations and absorbed them all without flinching. Delia, Paige, June, and 2 witnessing relatives settled into chairs around a long table. The light through the blinds was thin and even. Paige arrived dressed sharply. She greeted Thibodeau like they were old friends, laughed lightly at something he didn't say, and arranged herself in her chair like someone waiting to receive an award. Thibodeau opened his folder without ceremony and began. Standard assets first, the property, the accounts, personal items distributed according to written instruction. Paige nodded along steadily, adding small sounds of acknowledgement, already calculating. Then Thibodeau paused. There is one additional component to this estate that requires special attention. He adjusted his glasses. A sealed personal safe, referenced specifically in the primary document. Paige leaned forward. Right. And as the executor of, the named executor is not you, Ms. Paige. His voice didn't change temperature at all. The document designates Delia Fontenot as sole executor and primary beneficiary of the contents of the safe by name, with a recorded date of intent predating this year by 4 years. The room stopped. June's hand tightened on her purse strap. Paige's face moved through 3 expressions before settling into something hard and unreadable. The safe was brought in. It had been held in secured storage at Thibodeau's firm since Poplou's estate planning 4 years prior. Nobody in my family had touched it. Nobody had been able to. Thibodeau handed me a sealed envelope. My name on the front and Poplou's handwriting. Inside, the combination. My hands were steady. I want you to know that. My hands were completely steady. Inside the safe, a collection of savings bonds, a deed to a small piece of land Poplou had purchased in my name years ago, quietly, without announcement, and a handwritten letter, 2 pages, folded neatly, addressed to me alone. Paige stood up from her chair. This is wrong. He wasn't in his right mind. I want this contested. Thibodeau looked at her evenly. The documents were witnessed, notarized, and have been in secure custody for 4 years. There's nothing here that is contestable without significant legal cause, which does not currently exist. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I held that letter and I said, quietly. He knew. He always knew this moment would come, and he made sure I'd be okay. Paige walked out. The door didn't slam. She controlled even that. June stayed behind, sitting motionless, staring at the table, unable to find my eyes. The room held everything that had been done to me over those weeks, and everything that had just been undone. In the weeks that followed, I did not gloat. I grieved. Properly, finally, now that I wasn't spending every ounce of energy defending my own honesty. I visited the piece of land Poplou had deeded to me. It's small, modest. A quiet rectangle of earth with tall grass and a line of oak trees along the back edge. I stood there in the late afternoon and felt him in the stillness, in the way the light came through those trees, in the specific silence of a place no one else had claimed. Paige reached out once. A text that read like a negotiation dressed up as an apology, carefully worded, leaving room to argue later. I read it. I set my phone face down on the counter. I didn't reply. June called eventually, crying. I listened. I was kind. But I was done bending myself into shapes that made other people more comfortable while I disappeared. I used a portion of the savings bonds to pay off debt and build a small emergency fund. Nothing dramatic. No celebration. Just the feeling of solid ground under my feet for the first time in a long time. The family didn't fully reconcile. And somewhere along the way, I stopped needing them to. Poplou didn't just leave me something in that safe. He left me proof. Proof that I was always worth believing in. I just had to wait for the lock to turn. If someone has ever told the world you were lying when you held the truth quietly the whole time, I see you. That silence is one of the hardest things a person can carry. It sits in your chest like something swallowed wrong, and no one around you seems to notice the weight of it. Share your story in the comments. You don't have to carry it alone, and click like to help this story reach someone who needs it tonight. Every week, I share a new story about family, survival, and finding your footing when the ground gets pulled out from under you. If this one stayed with you, subscribe so you're here for the next one. And if you want to keep watching right now, the next story is already waiting for you. I'll see you there.